So I printed out.
No. There. So there's my just. Measure that. 8 months, that's all they do. Northern Kingdom.
That's what I was saying. Yeah. Just hired him again.
Do you know if he passed for that? For what? Becca. Did he get it registered?
You can still sign up.
I thought so.
Reminder that we're having.
Yeah, I wonder if when my email got messed up, it canceled.
Oh, it's really up there. isn't it?
3:25. Going out there.
Eric is coming.
Yes. Promise. Yeah, Eric Keepy. See, he's got a homemade sign. Probably should. Yeah, it'd be nice of you. Yeah. Pretty good, you like that.
And Eric's old iPad. I know. It's easy.
We knew he was coming back.
Yeah, there was some face.
Possession is 9/10 of the law.
Yeah.
Oh, it definitely went away. They were working on it for 2 days, trying to make it work. Just keep sending stuff to Vermont.
Go ahead and start.
Yeah.
Okay, so, we're gonna call this, March 1st, Site Plan Review Technical Advisory Committee to order. Note that we do have a quorum. Nick is joining us on the Zoom call. First order of business is approval of the minutes. Is there any comments? We have 2 sets of minutes.
I'm gonna abstain, I wasn't there.
The January 4th.
I'm sorry.
Do you want to handle them one by one?
Yeah, we'll handle one by one. So January 4th.
Peter, are you recording?
We are recording.
Okay.
Well, I'll turn the flash. I think it's just, I think it's just the. It's just a light. Thanks.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'm sorry, I wasn't, I'll second the January, I was at the January, not
Okay. All in favor of the January 4th, say aye.
Aye.
All right, means these minutes are approved. How about February 1st? Same.
I'll abstain the February first.
Move to approve the February 1st, 5 minutes.
Second, back. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so we have 2 items under old business. 375 Banfield Road has postponed, as well as 1169 Sagamore Avenue postponed. That moves us to item C under old business, the request of Elizabeth B. Larson Trust of 2012 owner for property located at 668 Middle Street, requesting site plan approval for the construction of 2 2-unit structures and improvement to the existing structures to create a total of 8 units on 3 lots with associated utilities, connections, and site improvements. Said property is shown on assessment map 147 lot 18 and lies within the historic and general residence A districts. Who is here to present?
Peter, Joe Fornati, Jones and Beach Engineers, Mike Garapi, the applicant. We did receive your comments yesterday. And we have too many questions on them. They're fairly specific items, how things need to be connected, where easements need to be located. I don't think we have a problem with any of them. The one question I did, or one of the questions I had was just we did switch the datum for the site is all vertical datum 88. I think that's the correct NAVD 88 is the correct vertical datum, and then we are on state plane, and I know we are on that NAD 83. But is that what you're? Is that what was being referred to in the, it's just the state plane NAD 83 part was missing, or Just wanted to make sure. Something else, the. These are all things that we can,
TVMs on the plan need to be converted to.
convert it to the 88 datum, the old one. Yes, we can take care of that. The carriage house, it was a question number 17 about, must be a condo in the remaining mother parcel in order to allow it to have a separate water service. And it would be a condo. The building, carriage house would be one condo and the front building would be a second condo. I think we have those on the condominium site plan as A and B. And so that's a. The only question I had was number 18.
These are originally apartments, not.
Oh, yeah, so the front building, is 3 apartment. It's in that front building, that will just be one condo unit. So that building will be a condominium with 3 units in it. The carriage house, single family residence will also be a condominium unit.
So are they apartments now or are they?
Correct, yeah, and they'll still be apartments. They won't be individually condoed in the building, just be a condominium unit. So it'll be. Some of these plans, I don't believe, show the limited common area, but they'll be basically land condominiums, A and B.
So
You get
somewhere,
2 separate owners for these buildings, but each owner would then rent the units individually. That's how that would work. So if you have one parcel of land, you could subdivide it up for condominiums. Each condominium could be multi-units within it.
so somewhere it needs to say condominium, in the condominium docs for that parcel, that the units cannot be sold as condominiums.
Correct.
Otherwise,
We'll have all those condo docs submitted and obviously need to be reviewed and approved by legal counsel as condition.
that's the whole reason for that. whole
Yep.
thing.
Yeah, so it'll be one, so one entity will own that 3-unit building.
Yeah, that's
It'll
fine.
be able to rent.
You just can't sell them off
Correct,
individually without
Yep.
changing the water.
correct, yep. Understood.
And that back one, that is only one dwelling in that back house?
Correct. So the condominium units will share access and maintenance responsibilities for the driveway, parking. And I don't know, Joe, you were talking about 18, but we did provide architectural plans on 18 on your list. Part of the submittal package, I don't know if we need to resubmit, Peter. Someone had some comments about the architectural plans at the last. So we upload those.
Should be part of yours.
A new comment that we hadn't seen before, so I'm assuming we just got overlooked. We certainly can resubmit, just upload them.
That's just kind of, so 3 4 ordinance would be, it's not going to compromise. I don't know if anything here, I know it's existing use, just trying to confirm with staff that it would not trigger sort of special use. I'm not sure what the standard is for that, so that's a question for staff. Making sure.
No, that's their existing, the 3 family.
But the lot's being subdivided. So the existing 3 families on a different lot essentially, because it's a subdivision.
I don't know if any of the improvements or the subdivision
Right,
either would
They
trigger.
have enough lot area for all the units that will remain on the existing lot.
Okay.
We did go to the ZBA for a couple of variances a while ago. Access to the private railway. So that part was reviewed. So we have nothing else. I mean, we're agreeable to those items and we can, I think, pretty easily make these changes and get these plans back to you and hopefully to the planning board.
Are there any additional comments or questions related to that? Nick, just chime in if you have any comments.
Yeah, I'm good. I just need to see those elevations again from previous submissions, I guess.
Is that something you need us to provide here, or is that something that you had uploaded everything? So let's send it again.
Yeah.
Have they changed?
Have it changed? They haven't.
Was this the one that, it was suggested that we use some metal standing seam roofing in lieu of the asphalt shingles? Are those the elevations that?
Correct, those are we originally submitted on, and those were looked at. And I guess the detail level of these are not, we're showing roofing materials and we're not calling out yet. I guess that kind of, that level of detail. But they do show, pretty good representation of the DP, you can see over elevations.
Yeah, they need to be included in the plan set moving forward rather than asking us to go back and fish them out. They really should be included in this set.
Yeah, we can start including in our sets. We never do that, but we certainly can.
All right, so no other comments from Jack? Are there any?
I just have one question. What's the status right now of the subdivision?
Subdivision was recommended by TAC to proceed to planning board, but I believe it was concluded that it had to wait for site plan, so they go together.
That's correct.
What's the status of the offsite deed? That is, this whole thing rides on,
When you,
the offsite utility deed.
that would be
We
great.
need to have that.
To be going to the city. Yeah, all the easement documents are being drafted by our legal counsel. I'm assuming as a condition of approval that would be reviewed by legal counsel. That's the typical process, but we can submit those. But we definitely can submit those as part of our application to the planning board, and then you want to advance, sort of fast track that review process next month. We're agreeable to do, grant all those easements.
It's the offset easement I was talking, the offsite easement I was talking about.
The one on Whalen's property.
Right.
Oh, yes, that's
Condition, can't do that one.
to connect to that.
Sewer,
Sewer main.
right, the other than that, you don't have sewer.
That, that's also underway as well.
Okay, so you have that next one.
We'll have that for planning board. We're also working with the butter to our east on Middle. We do have a shared driveway with that dwelling, so we'll be working with them on providing shared driveway easement, which doesn't exist today. So we're just trying to have a lot of easements to just clean up both sides of the property.
Where is that?
Our frontage on Middle Street, the driveway is shared with the neighbor, tax map 147 lot 19. So there's no easement currently in place, it's just.
Driveway straddles the lot
Yeah,
line.
so we're gonna work on, we're working on that easement language as well, so we just have something. Again, sort of just cleaning up old historic.
Yep.
Do you want to see that shared easement? Prior to planning board?
It should be on the subdivision plan.
We'll just have it to be recorded, and then, the carriage house currently ties into that sewer manhole on Chevrolet. I'm sure you know, so we're just gonna, we're gonna be adding, the additional units should be going there as well. we'll clean everything up with easements, both with Wayland and grant it to the city for the right of way, utilities, what have you.
We'll make it that 5 feet off the edge.
Dave, do these civil easements ever make their way in the map GL, or is that something that you
Do, yes, they do. Once they get the recording.
Just the ones dedicated,
Just what?
just the ones that are dedicated to cities and easements.
You put both of them, actually. But once they get a call, so you won't see it.
Yeah, this is also just to mention, as part of our discussion with the Waylands, we're anticipating they're going to be agreeable to granting easements for the Chevrolet Ave right away as it covers their lot as well. So we're gonna get all those documents together. So hopefully that'll clean up most of the encroachments. The road. Well, it's nothing, I mean, those lots were subdivided, I think, back in 2008. The city didn't request any easements at that time, but they seem to be agreeable to do it. So now. No, this is the two lot, there's two adjacent lots to us, to our parcel on Chevrolet. So it's lot 19-1. -2 is what I imagine.
They're vacant, currently vacant lots that were subdivided.
Part of Chevrolet Avenue, the travel way encroaches on to both lots, I believe, 19-1 and 2. It just, for obvious reasons, I think everyone is agreeable to grant this.
Yeah, it's the last remaining parcel.
Yep.
Out of all of them.
Any comments?
The existing sewer service in that off-site easement, will that get removed when the new sewer gets put in?
Yes, yeah, we have a C4 7/14 is our utility plan, and we'll be installing a new service to the carriage house that will come off of our sewer main extension instead of kind of cutting that corner or doing whatever they had to previously to get to the carriage house.
You, Joe, you're showing replacing that sewer service well back into the lot. Is it because of the grades?
I think it's mainly just because of the, it's a good time to, we're gonna be ripping all their driveway up, the road up.
You're aware that sewer lateral was fairly new, right?
I'm not that aware of it, no. I thought it might be quite a little bit old, actually, so I don't know the condition of it.
Wasn't the person
It's 08.
The other oddity with it is kind of the pathway to it. But yeah, maybe we'll,
probably going around lunch.
yeah, maybe we'll end up having to just reconnect the end of it in and then relocate it.
Well, however far you have to go back to meet grade, you're going in an elevation much higher than they did. So,
Yeah, so I mean, I think we'll show the whole thing being replaced, maybe in the field again. You know, when they do test bits to find that sewer service, if they can make it work. We know the invert coming into the manhole, but we don't know how it rides from there to the house.
Sheet C1 states the existing sewer service to be abandoned, updated to the C4 of be removed. Might be.
Did it have it removed?
No, just whatever, what you choose to do, have it consistent and.
Should we just move there?
No, no. You need to see an updated plan set with all the changes. Before you go out.
Okay, and so what would the next step be after we update the plan and submit to, I think to your, I can't remember what it's called now. Is it, we come back here again, or is it just a review and then? How does that
Yeah,
work?
I think we'll get back and make sure that it's buttoned up.
We're gonna want to see what you're.
Good, that's fine. Yeah.
The deeds drafted, as soon as legal.
Typically, my understanding is that legal won't even look at them until the planning board approves. You definitely submit drafts. If they want to start the review, we'd be happy to have them start the review so we can get it done quicker, but. So we'll get everything submitted before the next tag.
Yeah.
I had to look at Joe, but she's gonna have to work.
I won't be drafting.
No, it's
Fine
true.
for, rest of it, I don't, we don't have a problem. Resubmit.
Confirming these 4 units don't have basements, right?
That
I don't
is,
see any foundation drains or calculations for groundwater or anything like that, so I'm assuming these are all slabs.
well, that's one thing that we haven't really, I guess we should talk about it because we have had some discussions with Jean, I know our builders had some discussions about foundation drains and
Correct, and then subsequently I had some preliminary discussions with Dave, realizing that it may be an option for a design waterproof foundation that would not dewater the surrounding area, that would simply remove the water from the footprint of the foundation itself. That would be acceptable, but you have to show how that's actually going to happen, and make sure that it's an engineer design that works. Is that correct, Dave? Is that correct?
Yeah, we would need to see a detail on the plan set to show all that. So we can-
sure.
So then that we're just assuming.
Sure.
Any other comments from chat? Is there anyone here from the public that wants to comment on this application? So no one, close the public comment portion. Open it to tag for discussion.
I don't know, we've been asked for a planning board to make sure that projects are more complete before they go there. So, no, that will work.
Yeah, I think it's good time for this item.
I think it's very small things. I think, and I don't know what the standard is here, offsite easements sometimes can be tricky if you don't get them, and if the site can't be served, because you don't have them, that's all. And so it's, I've seen it done both ways, but it's always, in my opinion, the best practice to get those kind of sum up, so that we know that it's a viable project. I don't know if anyone likes to get those further along in the process before we take a look at them. I'll staff on that. So I guess I'll take it back to the TAC. I think there are occasions where I can go forward with a very detailed letter to tell you this, all these things must be updated prior to going to planning board. But it's already too late for the next one. March, so I guess I'll defer to TAC. But the offsite easements are a big one, I think. I don't know what the standard practice is.
I think we can try to move towards getting things, at least the draft. But the other thing is that foundation drainage could affect your drainage. So. Watering. That.
Sure. We prefer to have TAC complete sign off
Yeah.
before we go to planning board anyway. I don't want to have, like previous projects where, we're waiting for a final sign off from either the town peer review engineer or public works. Sometimes it takes, it'd be better to get it all done. So I agree, so we'd rather come back. Sounds good to me. And with respect to those offsite easements, I mean, anything that we have control over on our property, we're more than happy to provide. We don't necessarily believe we need any offsite easements because we have prescriptive right. We have rights to use that, access that manhole as it exists today. It's in, we're already in there, we're using it today. So, we fully intend to,
Yeah, but you're expanding use. I'm sure we agree with you.
Use in a single service, you're extending a main connecting 4 additional houses to it.
sure.
And with City Bay.
Yep.
For that reason, especially.
I think that's a little strange about that manhole that, I think that manhole is relatively new also, right? Because when I looked at the easements.
The manholes, yes.
Because when the Whalen lot was subdivided, they provided some easements. It seemed like at that time, the manhole the connection was shown to a different location. A lot of the easements they did would not have been needed if that manhole was installed. So that was the other thought we had, was that it seems to be relevant. Some point it got put there on that property relatively recently. So we assumed it was done with proper easements and whatnot then.
And this is all probably moved because the Whalens have indicated a willingness to work with us and work with the city.
Yeah, no,
To grant
and that's
these.
all good, believe me. But
Just clean up a lot of
we're
historic.
gonna be doing a lot of survey work on Chevrolet Avenue the last 2 years. And we realized that we didn't have some of the rights that we love.
I think move some liability from there, them as
Yep.
well, not having a road on their property.
All right, so sounds like we'll continue this next one.
Second,
I'll make a motion.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you all.
I meant to say at the beginning, just make sure that TAC members, we speaking to the microphones, because our minute taker can understand this. Draft the minutes. Even had a note at the beginning. All right, first item of new business is the request of Master and Restaurants Inc. owner and Granite State Convenience applicant for property located at 2255 Lafayette Road, requesting site plan review and conditional use approval for use 19.4 under section 10.440 to allow a drive-through facility as an accessory use to a permitted principal use in the Gateway Quarter Zone. Said property is shown on assessor map 272 lot 3 and lies within the Gateway Quarter G1 district. Who's here to prove that?
Thank you, Peter. Chris Mulligan from Rosen and Associates here in Portsmouth. With me is Nicole Duquette from GPI, who prepared the plans that you've seen. Also Brett Pernout from Apple. Unless you would like me to, I think you're familiar with the project and the site, unless you would like a brief overview of what we've done so far. We've got a few variances in the last month. I would just turn it over to Nicole to address the TAC comments that we received yesterday.
All right, that's fine.
Thank you.
So thank you, Stephanie, for sending that over yesterday. The TAC comments seem pretty, we're okay with all of these comments. The only question that I have is the DOT 15-foot easement. They did say 12 feet at our scoping meeting, but I will.
12 feet.
Okay.
not all.
No worries. But we'll make sure at that cross pitch. The other things, the sewer, providing a video, we'll set that up. And
Yeah, so we need to see that before you go to planning board.
Okay.
Because that's gonna, if you have to replace that sewer line, you're gonna need all kinds of conservation.
and I think we would be
Commission
able
work,
to do
so-
that before the March 30th deadline.
So we're gonna be doing that, how it works.
Absolutely. The stormwater maintenance plan, I believe that was at the end of the stormwater management report, but I will double check to make sure that that was included. And I did have a question on the multi-use path cross-section. Are we required to, or is the applicant required to install that path at the time? Okay, even though there's nothing on either side. That's fine.
Yes,
So that's the sidewalk along the front.
yes, as applicants been coming through, they've been building their sections of the path. Eventually, they will all be contiguous.
The future EV charging stations, if you could go to sheet 4, Peter, please. One thing we've been, on all of Brad's sites, we have been doing, showing these future locations. So that in the future, we don't have to come back to planning board to get these installed. However, this one seems to be in a little bit more of a process than our other sites. Further along in the process, we are talking to Tesla already on these. One question that they had is if we can increase the Tesla charging stations to 8, 7. So that will be a change to our plans to get one more space back there towards the rear of the property. The other thing that we were trying to find out is we're coordinating with the electric company and with Tesla on the future charging station equipment area. That may have to, I don't want to enlarge that area there because it is closer to the wetlands. And I don't feel like the Conservation Commission will like that. So I'm thinking about putting that out closer to the dumpster behind the charging stations so that we can get it as far away from the wetland as possible. Still, and then reducing the amount of impact where the charging stations, charging station equipment area is today, are shown today. So it would just be kind of switching it to a further location away from the wetlands. That is dependent on what we get back from Eversource though, on where they want the transformers. But we should be hearing from them a day now on their preference. As far as the other items go, the conditional use for the drive-through and the conditional use for the wetland buffer, those were both included in the packet on the online submission process. So we already have those submitted. I did have another question though. I did find, we went to the ZBA already, got our variances, but there was one for more than one driveway, because we have the entrance and the exit driveways. And I did notice that that was in the site plan review regulations too. Are we required to get a waiver as well for that section? So I think it's site plan section 3.3.2. Okay. So I don't think we gave you a waiver request letter for that on the check, but we do have it listed on the plans as a waiver.
Yeah.
And thank Isaac for me for combining the applications. I couldn't figure out how to do that.
Okay. When you said you're gonna add another charging area,
So just one
Back,
parking
is it-
space.
does it push the landscape, I mean, the trash enclosure back?
No.
How do you fit it in there? That design change the-
So-
change the layout.
What would happen is the future EV charging station equipment area
Yeah.
would be moved in back. Kind of in the area between the dumpster and
Thank
the, yeah, there
Oh,
in
back,
that
out of
area.
the buffer. Yeah,
And then one more parking space to be added for an additional charging station.
got it. Okay, thank you.
The current status of that is Tesla will be developing when we develop the site. And ChargePoint is our partner on universal EV charging, and we're still waiting on state funding to understand how all that plays out for EV fast charging. So that would end up being the future.
And you'll have Eversource confirming the power.
Yeah, they've already confirmed they have the power to do it. It's just what they will require for transformers. Most likely, this is going to be, this site will need 2 transformers, one for the charging stations and one for the site itself.
I'm not seeing a fire suppression line.
Fire suppression line,
There's fire suppression at the gas canopy.
which is a dry component. It's a dry component.
Referring to the.
The building is not sprinkled. There's fire suppression over the cooking line.
So the city's adopted locally IFC 2015 with amendments. And one of the amendments was reduction of fire area where sprinkler systems required 5,000 feet. Just showing us. So 5,000.
Also on the same lines of fire protection. Looking at the elevation, there's a deck, second story deck with a door. Is there a second level in there?
It's a mechanical deck. That's where the rooftop equipment sits.
Okay, so the rooftop equipment will be sitting and being exposed to those balusters that we're looking at. I don't see the rooftop equipment, but I see a baluster, guard across, and then vehicles driving underneath that. Yeah. So there'll be a component for fire protection. You have vehicles going directly underneath the deck that's housing mechanical equipment. So we'll have to look at that as well.
Are you talking about the canopy at the
Yeah,
drive?
so it's a fact. Is that,
It just cantilevers over 2 feet, I think, to maintain the clearance to the rooftop equipment unit. And then the rest of it that you're seeing is for rain protection while you're getting your coffee from the drive-thru.
okay, so it's just like a couple feet.
Yeah, the equipment's on the actual roof and it cantilevers over only to maintain clearance for accessibility of the equipment.
Yeah, if you look at sheet P202, and I have it right here too. The drive-through canopy, the section that you're driving under is just the canopy and then the rooftop units. So Peter, it's the second to last sheet. That makes it a little easier. Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
Any other comments?
Question about the parking. There's a half space there next to the future charging station equipment area. Is that a handicap parking space?
It's there. So some states are requiring at least one of the charging station spaces to be ADA accessible. So knowing that that's probably coming our way, we've been planning for that ahead of time. So yes, that is an ADA space over there, so that they can get access. The panel, the charging station panel is accessible, is ADA accessible because usually you do it with your 3. You have to get the charging cable.
Yeah. And then the crosswalk going over to that area, is it? It's leading into a parking space, someone's parked there.
Right. And we can remove that.
Yeah. It's a crosswalk.
Nick, do you have anything?
The only thing I wanted to make sure there was a connector between the multi-use path and the front door of the building. And it seemed like the only, or the most appropriate place to put it would be down the left-hand side of the proposed exit driveway from the back of the building with a crosswalk over that exit driveway to the sidewalk in front of the building. Yeah, over there, out to Lafayette. Yep. So some kind of speed hump or something where the arrow is in order to safely get across that exit lane, connect to the sidewalk in front of the building, and then be able to walk out. I don't know how wide it needs to be, probably not that wide, but it seems like there needs to be a dedicated pedestrian connector between Lafayette, the multi-use path, and the front of the building. That's it though, for me.
Show doors.
Water country across the street.
It is-
Yes, no, they like to run across right there.
You submit your final submission for planning board analysis. Just for that analysis of criteria.
We did that.
Oh, great.
So there's two letters in there with the addressing the criteria hardship for the drive-through and for the COP.
Notice on the truck. You don't have
Okay. I'm sure we have that from another job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here from the public want to comment on this update? Check Zoom. Anyone on the Zoom call? No. Is there anyone on the Zoom call who would like to comment on this? Close the public portion of this and open it to chat for discussion.
You got some items here.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
That's the March 22nd, April 5th, March 22nd deadline.
That
So,
sounds
right.
right, but I'll double check.
Yeah, yeah.
when I get upstairs.
That's what we're gonna do.
Absolutely. Or just, is it on the website?
It's all-
Right, I'll get it from the website.
Rummage.
Next on the agenda is the request of ADL 325 Little Harbor Road Trust owner for property located at 325 Little Harbor Road, requesting wetland conditions permit under section 10.1017 of the zoning ordinance to replace the existing single-family structure, carriage house, shed, barn, and paddock, construct a garage, pool cabana, playground, and renovate the existing barn and shed with all associated electric, gas, water, and sewer updates as required on private property and within the public right of way. That property is shown on assessor map 205 lot 2 and is located within the rural and single residence A districts. Who's here for this application?
Hannah with Tia Brand. Nice to see everybody's smiling faces finally. I have with me Corey, as you are well aware, with Tia Brand. Bernie Lee with Severino Construction, who's also responsible for the Sagamore Avenue sewer extension. We have the owner, Anthony Di Lorenzo. And we have Jim, who's with Youngblood Builders. I just want to give you a quick progress update on where the project is right now. We currently have a CUP for a detached accessory dwelling unit granted by the planning board. We just resubmitted for the wetland CUP for conservation and planning board, hoping to go on March 9th for conservation and March 17th for planning board. And as a reminder, we're here at the request of planning. Although this is a residential project, doesn't necessarily require us to be at TAC, but we're here because of the complexity of the utilities that we're proposing, which also impact a number of the public ways. So you guys are pretty familiar with the project. Just a quick overview of what we're proposing is water. And this is over about like a half-mile driveway and then kind of a half mile to Sagamore Avenue. We have 4-inch C900 PVC. We have underground gas, which is a 2-inch main, which we'll be coordinating with Unitil. We have electric, a number of conduits, which we'll be coordinating with Eversource and the like Comcast. And then we have an existing gravity sewer or proposed gravity sewer, which is going into E1 on the island. And from there, we're looking to pump via force main and a 1¼ inch pipe all the way up to Sagamore. So if I could just go through the comments that Stephanie sent to us, and we'll start discussing that. The city was recommending a 1¼ inch diameter force main. I'm sorry, 1.5. We're proposing 1¼ at the request of the suggestion of the designer who does E1 designs. He said anything bigger is going to increase the septic time, the retention time, and possibly increase the ability for it to go septic. And with the low amount of sewage that we have going into the system, we're worried about going up and higher than 1¼ we wanted to discuss with you if that was a possibility to keep it at 1¼ rather than
It has
transition
to
to
do with the
1.5.
tools they need to clean the line.
Gotcha.
1¼ is too small to clean.
If we did 1¼ to the right of way using a lateral kit and then transitioning to 1.5, would that be okay? Because I
I think it's
assume
up
we,
for additional discussion.
okay,
Dave, if I could comment, are you saying, because in addition, you had another comment about the clean out manholes? So we want them every 1,000 feet, so you can sit in the middle. So if in each clean out manhole, there was a minimum of 1.5 inch connection. One at the terminal manhole where it's gonna daylight to gravity at the stop bar at Little Harbor Road, you want us to add. And then at every 1,000 foot interval, so then your tools would fit that and still be able to flush 1¼ inch line.
Common tools, not our tools.
Common tools.
Just to be clear.
So those in each clean out manhole, that was 1.5 inches.
I actually personally have never seen clean line. I've just been told by our people that they cannot clean it in smaller than 1.5 inches.
and actually that brings up a good point because the detail for the clean outs, it's all 1.5. It goes to 1.25,
No, I
1.5,
understand, I
and
understand.
then back down.
So it's beyond my expertise to be able to answer the question.
Gotcha.
We have to examine it a little closer.
Okay, we'll check later. The next was permission for sewer connection is conditional on sufficient flow, but the contents of the main do not turn septic because issues offsite. So obviously if there's an issue when it's installed, we'll go to septic. Number 3, can't do meter pits anymore, must be going building, so we'll do that. We're considering going into the garage instead, if that would be okay to
Is it a
reduce.
full-time heat building?
Yes.
Alarms.
Heat, full heated
He
alarm,
can't go off, everybody gets notified,
low temperature alarm.
nobody lives in the building, so
That's fine.
that would be, as long as it's a full-time heated building.
Number 4 is the chlorine injection. Just want to describe that a little bit more. The purpose for the chlorine injection, which is what we have right at the start of the driveway, that's for when you do construction, there's soils and stuff that's going to get within the line. So once you're done completing the
That's a
line,
construction
you just
job.
flush it out.
Okay.
So that's the purpose of it. So it's okay if we just leave it there. And we won't get into that meter pit.
Well, it's not okay if you leave it there, it's just something that they'll go over and they'll destroy it when they're done.
Okay, yeah,
So it doesn't need to be out of
Okay.
No one on plan, it's not going to.
Number 5 is just related to the construction, if we do anything within Little Harbor or Sagamore, we did that. Number 6, the existing water service needs to be abandoned at the main. Because there's 2 meters in that water pit, we think that the other line, there's another line that goes to 321. So we were hoping to keep that service and then from there stub and then we can abandon. Any thoughts about that?
So there's only one line coming into the pit and 2.
I think there's 2 coming out, but just because obviously it's underground, we can't really see what's out there. So on our survey, it just showed us 1, but we think
So
there's.
before the machine.
I
I met Jim Tow out there, he alluded to that 321 had its own service.
Yeah.
And also Justin, or Jason, they both thought the same thing, but they weren't sure if it was still within there or when they redid the house, they actually tapped it off the 12-inch ductile in front of the frontage of that lot. So either way, we could dig down, just shut off 325,
So-
leave 321 as
Obviously, they
is.
don't want to shut off the neighbor.
Anything to do with 325, we're gonna remove, even if that meter pit stays there, their meter for 321 is gonna stay intact. And then we're gonna move over and recap for Mr. Di Lorenzo's service and run up the driveway, so that will still stay there. If there's 2 lines in it, 2 lines out of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure they're actually actively metering that house with that. Yeah, so we haven't allowed meter pits in a long time.
So we'll just, I guess, the answer is yes, we'll just shut his service off there, terminate, dig down for capital.
Number 7, this is a great point, is permanent pavement up on Sagamore, where we're showing our force main tying in. And then there's a recommendation to put instead a manhole up there, which then will just wire it into the existing sewer, so we'll do that. Number 8, we have cleanouts about every 1,200 feet, but we'll change that to 1,000.
So just like
Yeah, or just under. Recommendation of an 8-inch gravity line. And going to 6-inch. With the reason why we did 8-inch is because if we do an 8-inch line, we can do a little bit shallower, we can do a slope of,
No, we understand that.
okay.
We're just concerned there's not gonna be enough flow, it's gonna clog.
Gotcha. Our only worry is just if we go any deeper, it causes just increased head.
No. Not enough water, just not close.
You're gonna have a lot of parties, right?
Every weekend of the year,
So we do, Dave,
not just during the summer.
we do exceed the minimum slope, where we're at the point.
Yeah, no, I know, but it's just one house on an inch wide. I assume it's gonna be less used in winter time.
Well, this is any ordinary house, so it's.
No, I understand. It's,
We're confident that there's gonna be plenty of water in the line, especially at 0.05.
Okay.
I mean, as designers don't have concern.
okay. You heard?
Already freezes.
Number 10, that's going back to that existing water line. We're calling to remove it, but I think it's a better idea to abandon it.
Yep.
Number 11, applicant will need a license from the city for private means and primary voltage electricity. We'll do that. Number 12, leak detection, metering, easement will be required. We agree to that. Number 13, I was referring to 2.5-inch line that we have kind of in the middle of the site where it breaks off to go to the barn and the pool house. We're using SDR 11, which does have a 2.5 line. But if you want
The
to
line
go up to
breaks,
3,
you will not be able to find price for it.
okay,
That's the problem.
So go to 3.
so we'll go to 3.
Use the standard size.
And that was the last comment. Anybody has any discussions now?
That's water. 3 inches is not a standard size here. Those are 2 to 4. Sorry.
You had mentioned that the tools to clean were standard for.
A lot of these guys have used the same setups.
Well, I'm just wondering, the guy that designed this with 1 1/4, he must have faced this issue before, right?
Right, it's the clean out is, it transitions from 1 1/4 to 1 1/2 within the clean out sewer structure. And then goes back to 1 1/4, so we'll discuss a little bit further,
There's a lot
I
of people
think.
that design things that have never installed them.
Yeah, that's why I'm wondering what,
So anyway, just try to look out for your best interest.
Are you okay with the clean out being within the right of way, or do you want it all on that private driveway? Because I think we can get away with putting one clean out right at the end, and that will be like
If
less
you
than a
have a clean out
1,000
structure,
stretch.
you don't need a license for it.
Okay,
It's another-
They're 10 feet off the water main, their driveway.
okay.
Just going back to your last comment with the 3-inch, if we're running 3-inch HDPE, and I believe your meter sizes are on your website were 1, 2, 3, 4, and up to 10, right?
We would never put a 3-inch meter in this.
Right, so you're saying,
We don't do that.
you're saying we should just run 4-inch into the house, or you're?
Do they need 4 inches worth of water?
Irrigation is
Oh,
a lot.
demand, show we need 4 inches. At least to the island, we need 4 inches. That we're reducing down
Like the MEP size, the house that.
Yeah, it was- So the irrigation consultant, when his first numbers came back, it was a 6-inch line, and we put the kibosh on that.
So 4 inch.
4 inch.
And we can do just 1 meter, water meter. Or do you want one on every?
If you're gonna use that kind of irrigation, you should definitely have irrigation. So otherwise you're gonna have to pay sewer.
For
fees.
Agreed, yeah, yes.
Separate before,
We should not.
it was a 4-inch meter in the garage, so it's out of the website.
Yeah, and the irrigation.
Yeah.
So we'll have 2 4-inch meters.
You will not have a 4-inch meter.
Not the irrigation one.
The, right, 4-inch meter for the best.
You will have a 4-inch line. The meter will likely be a 1-inch.
Yeah, sorry, line going to the garage, it's gonna be 4-inch with a meter. And then we'll have a separate meter on the irrigation.
We'll need the calculations, how much water use we're expecting, the size of the water.
Just in discussions today, the designer, communication with one of our lawyers, I guess, there's resistance to a fire suppression system. So if that's the case, we would need to make sure that fire department has what's my purposes, meets the code. Give allowances for that, which, quite honestly, I don't think we're going to be able to do. So that's, I guess, the topic.
Address, just to give some background to those of you that don't know, this project was approved in 2017. What we're asking for, obviously, it's expired. My builder, Peter Kazna, passed away, which delayed us. And so, and Corey, please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of what we're proposing here is it's the same house that's moved 18 feet relatively.
Similar house, in a similar location.
We added a garage, it's not in a buffer, right? And so really the only major change that we have here is this utilities below the road. Fire department's been to my house twice, police department's been to my house 4 times. Nobody's in danger of a fire, it's an island, so that's just surrounded by water. And we designed this house, one, to look very original, consistent with Portsmouth. But 2, it's going to be not only an added expense, but an added design issue if we're forced to add sprinklers, which we would have been able to deal with when we designed the house in 17 had that come up. access to. So I don't see an issue why required to have sprinklers. Furthermore, structures on that island that really makes a difference are, one was built in the 1840s, 35s, one was built in late 1700s, and one was built in 1900. No sprinklers. So
Understood. That application is no longer.
Right. Well, I know the application's on, but I mean, and I'm not suggesting it is, but I mean, he came to town for the purpose of utilities. We had already been through the approval process. It's not like it was 10 years ago. It was literally.
I can't speak to that, but I don't think I was on that then, because I don't recall this project. I can just speak to it. It's definitely a remote area, have access concerns. There's no water out there.
Surrounded by water.
Salt water. Reachable for our trucks.
But you have, don't you have a fireboat?
We don't have a large fireboat. The code is clear as to what's required. Really, you could not approve the inappropriate fire department access or the lack of the water supply for fire department. So, by code, without something such as a fire suppression system.
Is 321 sprinkler?
So an existing building, we can't go in and make them do that. This is
I understand, but what the code you're referencing, when is that from?
the code I'm referencing is PA1. We adopted
2015 is a great.
Yeah, it was adopted in 2016, 17. Of the 2015.
And I sent earlier today that email from the applicant's attorney.
Yeah.
It said, and I'm learning this, listening both sides and learning, but it said that in New Hampshire, you couldn't request fire sprinklers.
That's semi-accurate. So we cannot pass an ordinance requiring fire sprinklers in a detached home in residential. However, the city hasn't done that. What we're doing is enforcing both the state fire code and the local fire ordinances, which have other requirements such as fire department access and water supply requirements. That's the requirement you have to. Now, if you can meet those, which again, I don't feel that's realistic, then you don't have to put a sprinkler. If you can't meet them, that's one of the exceptions that allow us that to compromise on meeting and therefore allow you to build structure.
And isn't that code simply that the access road has to be 20 feet wide with a hydrant?
No, that's part of it. So it has to be, there's a number of requirements. One is, the full 20-foot width the whole way, the turnaround if it's in excess of a certain distance, which this certainly is. There's grading requirements, there's weight requirements, the bridge has to be built to nationally recognized standard.
Large part of it is private road.
Private road.
That's the big thing, private road.
We have no real control over. And so what we would normally require in something that's over this line. In this area, there's a remote second fire department access, which is not realistic for you guys to do. So what we can do at our discretion is we are allowed to accept less than if there's something that allows us to do it. And one of the things specifically allows us to do that. So that's what we would allow for some of these deficiencies. Cool. That's us to do that.
It seems to me we could fit a 20-foot wide driveway with a turnaround and a hydrant. I mean, now it's as wide as 16 feet, in some places 18, some
18
now
with the
it's
shoulder.
12. Yeah, it ranges from 12 to 18 currently. So we're only talking, you know, a couple feet. Yeah, that can be achieved. And there's room prior to the bridge for a turnaround where there's an easement.
Prior to.
Yeah, or maybe even, you probably want it on the island.
Well, it would have to be within, I have to go back and look at the distance, but it's in the code, you know, within it. The area we'd have to travel beyond the turnaround is limited in distance. It's
Okay, simple. That could be achieved on the island.
Yeah, it would have to be somewhere on the island. It would not solve our concerns that it's a private road that the city doesn't maintain, there's not always people living out there. It would not alleviate those concerns, which is part of the reason that we want a sprinkler system, because it's gonna be a very good potential that they could be delayed for us to get up.
I don't want a sprinkler system. Fire department's been to my house several times. They've turned around and they've come back. We're willing to compromise, but I don't want a sprinkler system. Okay, it's my house, it's my property. Nobody else is in danger. It's a 12-acre island.
I would disagree with that, because the firefighters responding to your house that have been delayed and the fires grow bigger. And now they have to effect a rescue and do a search regardless of whether you're there or not, because we don't know who might.
So
But also,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
but the code's the code, I mean, it's required. Unless you can solve all these other things.
But the resolution, the solving of the thing sounds to me like a 20-foot wide access road with a turnaround. And we've got it in a height.
I'm not sure that's the only resolution, that still does not alleviate the concern. A single private road leading to some substantial buildings, assuming all wood frame construction. It does not. If you put together a plan and provide code references, always happy to look at them. Have conversations. So, you know, if there's not going to be fire suppression systems, just need to, there's going to have to be some changes.
Which, well, you keep saying significant. In my mind, I don't see it as significant, but we have a 16-foot, 18-foot wide paved road. We're talking about 1 to 2 feet on either side of the road.
We're just talking about another road in the island.
Oh, that's impossible.
Okay. And that's one thing, also, I don't know, that size house, that's a 13,000, over 13,000 square feet.
It's 11 to 12, 11.5 to 12.5.
Yeah, there's a patio system that goes outside of it that is about 1,500 square feet.
Wood frame or take three?
Wood frame, wood steel frame.
So the fire flow requirements for a 1 or 2 family home of that size is 3,000 gallons per minute. I don't think you can provide that.
How about with the cistern?
If you can provide 3,000 gallons per minute for 3 hours, there are other ways.
Is it 13D? Is that what?
It would be a 13, which is very easy to, so, but that's, now we're talking about sprinklers, not, you know, what a hydrant is required for,
Right.
different thing. Right. So the sprinkler would really only be probably required to have a flow of, say, 25 gallons a minute, right, as opposed to 3,000 gallons a minute, 3 hours. You can go that route. It would be, to me, much more expensive, much more difficult to do. The sprinkler is really a simple solution.
This is ridiculous.
Quick question about the sprinkler. Are there alternatives like a dry sprinkler system that pumps nitrogen to just push out all the oxygen?
No, there are dry systems that are filled with air, and when the head pops, the air is released and the water valve opened. closed water, but there's no way that you could have a clean agent system that would cover a building inside.
What's the pressure system?
It would have to be sealed, you have to have so much of the.
Commercial application.
Yeah, that's, I mean, those are in server, just a small room. You know, I can put it. You know,
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, the options are one sprinklers. Or two, you still haven't got option two, like I think understood. Because we just can't do a second access road. So are you saying there's no option two?
I do not see an option two that would work.
Because of only one point of access.
Well, that's part of it. Yeah, I mean, that's probably, that's part of it, but. And then I don't know what the bridge is being built to, what standards the bridge is being built to. I mean, we'd have to look at all this. We'd have to meet the fire department access.
The sprinkler system itself, would that be a 13D system? So, you know, might be worth, and I know he's quite upset, but educating owner on what that particular system looks like. It's not, you know, you're not gonna have heads like you see here. It's not that at all.
You can seal it.
You're gonna be flat and sealed. You barely know they're on a tall ceiling. You're not gonna have many of them because of the type of system that it is. It's not nearly as invasive as one might think initially.
It's called a 13D system.
Guess going back to option two, if we upgraded the water main to an 8-inch water main with multiple hydrants on the perimeter of the property, similar as you would do a loop system around a commercial building. And the road was upgraded to 20 feet wide. The bridge is going to be HS20 loading, which means all your apparatus weight, because we're going to be driving low beds across it. Do however many turnarounds we need, one before the bridge. One, I mean, there's a turnaround. We can see if it meets your radius or whatever, but if we meet all the requirements for fire access road and code, it sounds like you still have a concern that it's a private driveway, but is there anything in the code that says because it's private, you have to do A, B, and C, or is it mute to that point where if we meet all these requirements, and I'm, you know, I'm just being honest, if the driveway's not plowed, the driveway's not plowed. I know that you're saying that's a concern, but is that a regulation in the code that it says the driver has to be plowed, or
It doesn't
does that fall into
say
access?
that. It says that more than one fire department source shall be provided as determined by the authority having jurisdiction that access by a single road could be impaired. It gives some condition, terrain, climatic condition, vehicle congestion, or other factors. So it's really, it's the authority having jurisdiction, which in this case.
Okay, so that it does say a second point of access, is what it says. Oh,
No less than two.
no less than two, okay.
But going back, just to carry that thought, we had discussions about the Beverly Hill project that we just recently got approved last fall, where there was 56 homes, one access off Beverly Hill Road, and it went into a loop road. I keep going back to that. That only had one access, which is the same situation here as one access. Relatively,
Those are all,
they are.
I believe those are sprinkled.
Yeah. So that, okay. That's the key difference. Those homes are sprinkled. You don't have the concern about fighting fires.
Yeah, only
Getting
but having the delay, because a sprinkler will hold the fire in check.
So you get that. So going back to Bernie's point, is there any merit in upgrading that water to an 8-inch, couple of hydrants, turnarounds with a 20-foot wide access road, one access road? Is that feasible?
I don't think so, and I don't think putting multiple hydrants on the same water.
There's only one hydrant on the island, by the homes.
I was just saying for access.
So we need to do that. There might be a reduction in that based on space from the building. But still, it's more than.
there's more water demand than what can be supplied. So.
That's what I'm thinking, but
Yeah, no, yeah, not
it's
as,
not my area.
Jim Fox comment. Concerns?
I know that forwarded email. To look at.
I'm sorry, what's the second? Mark?
Melbourne.
We have it. Anyone from the public who wants to speak on this? You can come up and just share and access that microphone.
I'm Lisa Mafuzzi Oaks. I live at 315 Little Harbor Road. I just have some questions. I know probably one of them's a mute point, and some of it goes to, I guess I didn't understand. Anthony was going to tear down what I call the convent and carriage house. Has anybody looked into the historic value of any of this? I know it's out of the historic district, but I mean, I spent my childhood over there, so I'm very familiar with the property. I even have pictures going back to the 20s. And it's also associated with the Tarbells in Newcastle. Edward Tarbell, he's in these pictures. I don't know if there's any historical, I can agree. I mean, I will say what he's done, like he rebuilt the stone seawall. It's a beautiful job. I mean, he knocked down the old schools, the block schools. And I can agree with, what they call the caretaker's cottage that is falling down. I guess I can agree with the carriage house and knocking down the original house. I don't know. Does anybody have an answer to that?
I can obviously answer it from there.
Sure.
We did look into that. In fact, the oldest structure on the island is the caretaker's house.
Yes.
And when Anthony learned that it dates back to the early 18, possibly late 1700s, he said, no, restore. So that's going to be restored. The appendages, the one-story appendages will be taken off. Those were built much later, but the original structure of timber frame is completely being restored. The barn is going to be restored. The only structure to be removed is the house, which was completely gutted and renovated by Mr. Clark, who bought the island back in around 2000,
yes,
about 22 years ago. The carriage house came later. That's the only other structure that's going to be removed. So the ones with the real historical significance we found was the caretaker's house, and for that reason, we opted to restore. The carriage house, not so much, it's just really a barn, if you will, with a little historical value.
But I disagree with the main house. I do believe that has historical value. I have pictures showing the history of it. So I don't, does anybody on the board have?
I'm certainly not sure what Mr. Kreppel has to say as he looks for our historic distribution. I have, it's my understanding that historic properties is that things that are more than 50 years date to the historic period. But I've worked in preservation a little bit, and unfortunately, even things that are listed on the National Register well, if it is in private hands, there aren't a lot of mechanisms unless the city has adopted specific regulations to stay demolitions and look for options, but a lot of historic properties that do end up in private hands that are not subject to any sort of specific regulations are sort of the discretion to the property owner. So even things listed in the National Register are not always protected. That's an unfortunate thing about sort of preservation. Just the listing of National Trust for Historic Preservation is not that site. Did you have anything to add to that?
I was on the committee for the Carey estate. So that's what got me thinking about it.
Sometimes the regulations, if there's a survey and there's some, regulations that support that, I don't know if you have anything like that, just kind of aware of that. There can be a stay sometimes of that, if there's certain mechanisms.
There is a demolition delay ordinance the city has that sort of requests a delay as opposed to the property before they demolish it. And then it goes before a committee. I don't think it offers a lot of change other than
Documents.
some time and documentation. If there was a federal, some kind of federal component to it, there could be a section 106.
Yeah, that's the only thing where there's a federal or state funding that may be government, they can stay through the 6 weeks and require some protection. Projects. That's the only thing.
It's a shame.
That
I do
has
think
teeth, that's the only thing, that section 106 has teeth, but other than that, it's, I've seen the state of demolition through certain cities that are designated as federal government, which is federal program. But as Peter mentioned, it's usually for documentation purposes. It's just it's a tough thing. I think folks are surprised that even things listed on the National Register or on state registries don't always have the protection.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I do think this design. I think it goes with Portsmouth, it's just not gonna be some big monstrosity. Just a couple of other questions. You talked about the bridge. I don't know if you guys have been under that bridge, but I mean, 30 years ago, we were waiting for the oil truck to go into the river. I know that it has steel girders reinforcing it, but if you look where the bridge is made, there's the concrete going up on each side, which is very old, and then it's crumbling. And underneath all the reinforcement, so I would hate to see the construction vehicles going there. A fire truck. I just, is that, because I didn't notice in any of this that he was going to redo the bridge.
We're definitely considering it. Do you have a structural engineer who's been out there? Since it can't handle the loads, but there are pretty girder plates so that the construction vehicles can get over the bridge. Those steel plates help reinforce it. And for the meantime, we're just going to do a little bit of repair to the concrete on the abutting walls and see if that takes care of it. If it doesn't, then probably be considered replacing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was an environmental,
Yeah.
Because all the rebar, all that underneath the bridge, that's gone. Rebar is just, it's just, to me, just a safety and environmental thing. Now with the sewer line, so obviously the sewer line's gonna run over the bridge, under the bridge. When you get up to Little Harbor Road, obviously you're gonna have to tear that all up again. It's just paved. Who's gonna pay for that repaving?
We are.
That would be us. And we're
Okay.
actually trying to size the road as well. So it reduces any.
We have budget to completely recalibrate. Absolutely, we understand.
That's it. Well, answered my questions. I appreciate your time. I'll be along. Good luck.
I do want to say I wasn't available, but I'm not aware of what preservation, and local ordinances. I'm not aware of what is I'm getting out of advice. Step back. apologize.
I feel bad, I called him early and I just got lost in the shuffle.
It's helping the local ordinance usually. It
Yeah.
doesn't extend to the properties outside the store.
Okay, all right.
I don't know the answer to that. All right.
No, it's a demolition delay.
There is one state review that which we underwent, which is the National Heritage Bureau. We did look at the site and, you know, they only took notice of the carriage house, not the other properties, which I'm sympathetic to because I went to the school where they tore a convent down too, so.
Yeah, it's just, you know, there is so much history over there.
At least two structures are staying.
Yeah, it was just, I think
Oldest
the
in the
biggest, I
barn.
think the biggest thing was the convent.
Mhm.
You know, just. I mean, I don't know how much you know, but that was sold to the sisters in 1940, you know, $1. That whole property, both sides. So it's just kind of neat. No, I'm done. I know everybody's ready to go. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a little confused. So is the bridge being rebuilt to the HS20 standard or?
The bridge is being reinforced from its current condition to HS20 standard, but we have had an inspection that meets the 75,000 pound. It will handle the 75,000 pounds right now for a 10-wheel vehicle, which I believe is what their fire with the NFPA, or whatever it is, requires, 75,000 pound vehicle.
Terra 5 is 81.
I'll have to go back and get the letter, but it does, but we are currently have 2 reinforcing schemes that we've contracted with a bridge contractor and have a PE stamp designed for to reinforce the bridge as it is, to bring it up to HS20 loading, because I can't get an excavator across there if it's not.
What I'm seeing on your plans is a post temporary reinforcement. So is it
Temporary,
Is it
meaning
temporary?
they're going after.
No, meaning it's a temporary repair to upgrade the bridge. It's not a temporary repair.
Well, it's the temporary plates is partly it, but it's a permanent reinforcement.
Right, so we're going to put 1-inch steel plates across the bridge to displace the weight on the bridge deck between, for the deck that spans between the existing girders, while we reinforce the bridge, and then when the plates are removed, the bridge will be reinforced.
And it will be designed and built according to the standard specifications for highway bridges, just 20.
Yes.
That just needs to be in the document, so that,
Yes, in fact, I've gone back, I went back to the early 2000s. Yeah, sorry. I went back to the early 2000s, found the engineer who had been writing letters that had been mandated by the Portsmouth Fire Department, and found that he had inspected the bridge. He was supposed to inspect the bridge for the previous owner every 5 years. And I found his series of inspections and had a subsequent inspection. The short answer is, long-term plan is we'll probably replace the entire span. Yes, of course, it would be HS20. I don't have the owner's approval to permanently replace it. So I hired Severino to hire a PE, get an engineer together, meet with DES, get the bridge, so it would hold the load of 100,000 pounds, so it would hold a concrete truck, which would mean it would hold a fire truck. So yes, we need to put that on.
yeah.
But the long-term plan, most likely, new bridge. Yeah. Everyone's talking. So.
There's no other public comment, we'll close that portion. Like. Second. Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Is there a motion to move it, right? All right. Thank you.
Almost